Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to do a quick review and comparison of a couple of sabers that you've probably seen around on the market. Over here on my right, I have the Saberforge Relic, and over here on my left, I have the Ultrasabers Renegade LE. Now I wanted to start off by talking about what's similar about these two sabers, and you can see that there's quite a bit similar about the sabers. The overall design of them. They both have windows in the emitters. They're both pretty much the same shape. So windows or vents here, here, and here. They both have a grenade grip. You can see it on the Ultrasaber over here. I have actually covered it up with grip tape on the Saberforge one. But underneath this grip tape right here, it looks very, very similar to what you see on this side. They both have these sorts of vents right here. And they both have these rather distinctive claws. They also both have very angular, pointy pommels. Now, this pommel over here is actually not the pommel that came with the Saberforge Relic. This is a Kyberlight pommel that was designed to look exactly like the one that came with the Saberforge Relic. The only difference between this one and the one that comes with it is the Saberforge Relic pommel is a little bit slimmer. Since this is a big, pointy, ridiculous saber, I went for the bigger, pointier, more ridiculous pommel. But otherwise, this pommel is pretty much exactly like the one that comes with it, except a little bit larger and a little bit more angular. The Renegade has the option to come with a pommel that also looks exactly like that, but it had a second option that was for a more flat, sort of stubbier pommel. So this one has that on it. But this has the option to come with one that looks almost exactly like that. Alright, so a lot of things similar. You can also see that the construction here, in both cases, this is a tube here that's set on top of a tube here, and there's an overlap right there. You can kind of hear my fingernail on it. Same thing over here. You can actually see it a little bit better because of the two-tone, but you see that tube across sort of nesting in this sort of joint here made by the lower piece, this overlap. Alright, so in both cases, very similar design. Just in case you're wondering, the Saberforge Relic was the one that came out first. It's probable that Ultrasabers ripped off their design. It's possible there was some kind of espionage thing beforehand. I don't try to understand these things. I'll just tell you that they're basically the same design, so somewhere along the line somebody was backwards engineering somebody else's. But that's not why I'm here today. I want to look at the finished product. So, very similar sabers overall. So let's talk about some of the differences. One of them you can see right off the bat here. The Ultrasabers Renegade is noticeably larger. That said, it's not as noticeable as it might appear. It's a little bit thicker. It's only about 3 inches longer. Sits just a little bit above the Relic here. You can see them when they're back to back. Some other differences between them. The vents on the Relic are on both sides. You see these vents right here on the other side. On the Renegade, vents on this side, flat on that side. Alright, the other difference, the claws are different, not only in the way that they appear, but in the way that they function. The Relic's claws right here have this little cutout in the middle. Also, the Relic claws are secured in with 2 screws, one here and one here, and if you unscrew these screws, the Relic claws will slide right out. That actually makes the saber a lot more usable, except it gives you there's a channel in the bottom right here, and this becomes a sharp edge after you take the claw out, so you need to cover that up with something if you're going to go without the claws. But these claws are fully removable. The Renegade claws are only sort of removable. They've got a track down here at the bottom, but no track up at the top. This screw is very deep in there, and this screw is actually used as a set screw for a rotation mechanism that's in here. If you want to see more on that, I actually did a review specifically of this saber where I take the whole thing apart and you can see how it's constructed. But if you take this screw out right here, then the top just sort of freewheels. You can take this screw out, remove the claws, and replace it with a smaller screw if you want to remove the claws. But this screw right here is necessary to the construction of the saber. Alright, so the claws are a little bit different. The Ultrasaber, as you can see, is a little bit thicker. Now that's pretty much par for the course. Ultrasaber's sabers work off of an MHS pommel system, which is larger thread size, compatible with TCSS, Custom Saber Shop. Whereas the Saberforge sabers are ASP, or Adaptive Saber Parts, or something like that. They're a smaller thread size, and they're interchangeable with Kyberlight parts. So, a little bit smaller on this one, a little bit bigger on this one. I mentioned that adaptability. This one, the Relic, none of these parts really come off. You can disassemble the saber here at the joint with this screw if you like. You can take the pommel off, but the rest of this is pretty much set together. Now, I don't know if that's because they're using substantially fewer pieces or because it's Saberforge and they like to thread seal everything, but this is a pretty solid thing that does not really come apart anywhere. Whereas this one, you can disassemble it. These emitters right here are MHS. They're actually kind of a nice emitter, but the emitters themselves will unscrew. These little extensions underneath them will unscrew. If you take the claws off, you can take off the side emitters. So this thing you can take apart and use it in parts for other things. This is pretty much assembled as is. Some other differences, the set screws. On the Renegade, each one of these emitters has 4 set screws on all 4 sides of the emitter. The Saberforge only has 1 set screw per side. What that means is that this has a lot more secure of a bite on the blade. This one, if you use it a lot, especially with a heavy grade blade, this 1 set screw right here is going to start to eat a hole in the blade, and the blade's going to start to wobble after time. Now, they did sort of minimize this by using a larger set screw on the Renegade than usual. There's kind of a standard set screw size that almost everybody except Vader's Vault uses. Vader's Vault uses a larger one. Saberforge used one of those large ones like Vader's Vault uses for their main blade to try to make it a little bit more secure. Alright, so that's pretty much the similarities and the differences between these things. Oh, one other thing about the Renegade before I go. The Saberforge Relic, you can get it with smaller or larger side blades. It comes with one of their infinity blades. Those are 36-inch blades, heavy grade, sort of frosted and diffused inside. The Ultrasabers gives you the option on the blades. You can get longer or shorter blades. You can get rounded bits or pointy bits. The Saberforge actually came with pointy bits. If you can see the end of that, I've actually turned that pointy bit into a rounded bit for this saber. But these you can get pointed ends, rounded ends, larger sides, smaller sides. This is actually one of the only places on Ultrasabers where they offer a 40-inch blade, which is what this is. You can get the 36, I think you can even get a 32 if you want, but you can actually upgrade to the 40-inch, and I don't think it costs you any extra. So if you want to make a saber that's already big and ridiculous, Conan levels of big and ridiculous, you can just go whole hog on the bigger of the 2 sabers. Alright, so Ultrasabers Renegade, Saberforge Relic. The last difference is, when I turn these on, you'll notice the Saberforge Relic is noticeably brighter than the Ultrasabers Renegade. I don't know if this has to do with power consumption or if it has to do with the LEDs they use or the optics. I'm not really sure why. But I noticed that these crossguards that I get from Ultrasabers, the crossguards take a light hit. I think it's probably because of the 3 LEDs and the batteries that they use, but that's just a guess here. But the crossguards do take a light hit. It is still plenty bright. It still is pretty impressive. But when you have the 2 of them side by side, there is a noticeable difference in brightness. So I thought I'd go ahead and mention that. If you've got any one of them individually, it's plenty impressive out and about. So if you're looking for that barbarian cosplay or that Sith marauder, or you just like things that are big and hard to use, these things are very pointy, very sharp. Use them with gloves. Use them with gloves that you don't care about, because every other part on any of these sabers is going to tear a hole in your hand. But they are impressive, they are big, they are very pointy, very angular crossguards. So hopefully that review has been of use to you. If it has, please join me back for more. and I'll see you next time.